Hi everybody, I'm Commissioner Jeff Baker, and I represent District 3 in Arapahoe County.
And I am Commissioner Jessica Campbell, and I represent District 2.
So we're so happy that you're here tonight. We've got some things that we want to talk to you about, and then we've also got Ms. Courtney Stryker here from our Community Resources Department, who will be able to answer some questions. We thought having this at Heritage Eagle Bend, we might have more of a senior citizen participation, just because this is a 55 and older community. So, 55 and older, I don't know. But I wanted to tell you a little bit about my background. I'm retired from the Army. I was a criminal investigator for the Army. I was what was called a CID special agent. And so when I retired from the Army in 1993, the first job I got was with the Aurora Police Department, doing crime scene investigation work. And I worked for them about 5 years, got my master's degree in public administration, and started working for Arapahoe County Human Services. So for the next 18 years, I worked for Arapahoe County in the two different departments, Human Services and Facilities and Fleet Management. I was in charge of all the Arapahoe County buildings. And I knew Commissioner Bachenfeld, my predecessor, and he encouraged me to get involved in politics. I became a precinct leader, and eventually threw my hat in the ring in 2016, was elected to my first term, and took office in 2017. I was re-elected in 2020 by a very small margin, but I was re-elected, and I'm currently running again for my third and final term. Arapahoe County Commissioner can serve 3 4-year terms.
And part of why I think why we're introducing ourselves is that Heritage Eagle Bend got redistricted. So it was more traditionally in yours. Now I have some, and so we thought we'd kind of combo it up. Plus we like hanging out. But I am Jessica Campbell. I'm in my first term, about 18 months in. I am an attorney with my master's in comparative politics. I've worked on environmental law. I've also worked in the state house. I've passed housing reform, insurance reform, immigration law reform, environmental policies, kind of like a Jane of all trades. And when I was practicing as an attorney, specialized in election law. So I've really sat at that cross section of law and politics my entire career. I also taught English in Spain and here. I have some really amazing students that I taught through that. And honestly, it's, when you are coming up in your career, you're kind of like, man, I've kind of jumped around and done a bunch of different things. You kind of can have some insecurity about that, but being a commissioner, I mean, we go birth to earth at the county. And so having experience in everything has really helped me. And it's been a delight to learn from Commissioner Holen, who is termed out, so he's had a long storied career, Carrie, Leslie, and then Commissioner Jeff Baker as well. So we will also, I think, as we're going through this, we'll kind of talk a little bit, and then we'll do Q&A, and we'll talk a little bit, do Q&A. So as you're going, write down your questions, and also keep track of, because we will be mentally tallying the laughs that we get. So write down your questions. We're excited and happy to answer them as we go on.
Yeah, thank you. So let's start with an item that's been on everyone's minds for a long time. You may have seen our survey that goes out about our budget and how Arapahoe County is facing a pretty immediate budget shortfall. How did we get here? Well, first of all, I need to tell you that Arapahoe County has been pretty fiscally conservative with their funds for many, many years. We only do projects that we can pay for. We very, very seldom bond things. We don't borrow money in order to do these projects. We wait until we can afford them. We try to get as much federal dollars, many state dollars, transportation. I'm on Dr. Cobb, the Denver Regional Council of Governments. That's one of the ways that we bring federal dollars back to Colorado for our roadway projects. The only tax that we have, the only sales tax that we have is 1/4%, and it's designated to be for open space and parks.
That's what I was driving through to get here, by the way. So
Yeah.
I was like,
It must have been right along with you.
Oh, yeah, no, normally I can shave off a minute or two on 47, not that I would ever.
Speed. No.
Never,
No.
no.
So, the sales tax was first passed by the voters of Arapahoe County back in 2003. It had a 10-year sunset, but the voters saw the benefit of that sales tax and they renewed it. And so for 2 iterations, so a total of 20 years, it was a way to get, and we share it back with our towns and cities. It was a way for Arapahoe County to really beef up our trails, our parks, and our recreation stuff. It was two years, so we took it to the voters for a 3rd time, and the voters made it permanent. So that's now a permanent $0.25 cent sales tax.
Only for open spaces, half of which we give back to the cities too, and we do a lot of shared projects and such. Yeah.
So that's the only sales tax that we have. Of course, everybody knows about our property taxes. The budget always gets balanced every year. That's a law. We're required to balance our budget every year. But with the COVID pandemic, the only way we made it through that time was because we got both CARES and ARPA funding from the federal government. The first one, the CARES, we had to share with our towns and cities. In ARPA, the towns and cities got their own allotment of fund. That's one-time money. So Arapahoe County was very thoughtful about how we spent that money. And we started programs that we knew once that money dried up, those programs would either have to go away or we'd have to find some other way to fund those.
Yeah, there were some one-time projects, and I think I wasn't on the board at the time, but it was one of those things that as a candidate in 22, looking at what the board was doing, I thought they were very smart about one-time projects and sort of some capital things and fixes that we could do, as well as things that specifically addressed the needs that were created or exacerbated by COVID. I would say homelessness, emergency rental assistance, eviction protection. Part of the problem, the shortfall that we're having in those one-time dollars drying up is that the problems have not gone away, right? And so while the dollars are gone, the problems still exist and the demand and the needs still exist. Yeah.
I would say they've even gotten worse.
Yeah.
We were talking a little bit about homelessness before everyone got here today, and that's a problem that took a long time to develop, and it's not going to be solved overnight. This fiscal approach, where we've tried to pay for things as we go, has served us well, but what has happened is the immense population growth in Arapahoe County, and we have been growing quite a bit, has impacted our services. More people being here impact the type of services, the quality of the services that we can provide to our citizens. Now, I know a lot of you that have to pay your property taxes every year are saying, wait a minute, they've been going up. Let me address that real quick. Yes, the amount of money coming out of your pocket has been going up. There's no doubt about it. It's expensive to live in Colorado for many reasons. Just like oil and gas, filling your car up at the gas pump, that's gone up. Anybody gone to the grocery store lately? That's gone up. So all those costs have gone up. Why has the population and the additional property taxes that Arapahoe collecting, why isn't that covering the additional costs of services? And the issue is that it just hasn't kept pace. The prices have gone up, the inflation, the cost of things have gone up so much that we just haven't been able to keep pace with it. Our property taxes are Tabor restricted. By that I mean we are one of 14 counties, I think 11 counties that have not totally de-bruised. That means Tabor, and I'm a Tabor guy, okay? I want you to know that right up front. I support Tabor. I think it's been a good thing for Colorado for the most part. What our problem is that we're competing. We're competing with all of the other counties and cities around us who have been de-bruised. So they have more money to spend for these projects. So the construction projects and employees know that they can be paid a better salary if they go elsewhere. What we do, you may not have ever received a rebate check from Arapahoe County. You may have gotten $700, $900 from the state government last year, part of the Tabor refund. We don't do it that way. The way we pay our citizens back to make sure that we're not exceeding the amount allowed by Tabor. You want to know how we determine how much Tabor, our property taxes can go up? It's a combination of inflation, which the government uses the consumer price index for inflation, and the number of building starts in your county. It's very complicated. I've tried to, and it's different every year. So what we do is if we've over collected any property taxes, the next year we lower our mill levy. It's called a temporary tax credit. The only problem is those temporary tax credits become permanent. Why? Because Tabor says you can always lower the tax, but in order to increase it back to where it was, you have to get a vote of the people. So, under Tabor, communities are allowed to ask for permission to keep anything that they over collect, any of the property taxes. In other words, we won't have to do that temporarily. If we were to ask the folks to de-bruise, that's what it's called. Bruce was the architect and the writer of the Tabor Amendment. But if we were to ask folks to allow us to keep the money that we over collect, it would be about $45 million a year that we would have to channel towards about a $316 million backlog in deferred maintenance on our roads.
So one of the things I would say that contributes to the struggle that we're having and that you all are having is that, and I think a misperception that some people have is that you guys, the county treasurer collects the taxes, right? So people are like, well, my taxes are going up, and what the county doing with all this money? Well, we then distribute it to about 400 or 500.
Over
500 different taxing entities. So your metro district, your fire and sand district, the school districts, all of those, your cities, those keep going up while Arapahoe County stays flat, right? And so while you write the check to the county, it is the treasurer's job to collect and then distribute to all of those. And so that has been something that, as we've been talking about this, people not everybody totally gets that, but it's because we float our mills, and we're capped by that little formula, we keep falling behind while everybody else is able to charge more and keep up and they're not capped. And so it feels like a lot for you all and feels like less and less for us while we're trying to meet demand. What's also a factor is that a lot of our cities, so counties have very weak rights when it comes to annexation. So he talked about the growth. So why isn't the growth paying for itself, right? You would think new people come in, more taxpayers, they do that. When people come in, so our cities, they are able to annex, right? Our cities are very smart. They have annexed a lot of the commercial areas, right? And so a lot of the areas that we have left in an incorporated are residential, and residential just doesn't pay for itself, right? So we don't have that diverse portfolio of taxes that helps our tax base stay sustainable and strong. And so that's another factor of why we've been falling behind. So I think, we've kind of, does anybody have questions about why we're in the budget, like shortfall?
So, I pay more county taxes even at a lower mill levy than I did in the past. If that's the case everywhere, why isn't the county collecting more money in 2024 than it did in 2023?
So,
because everybody's real estate,
Yeah.
why?
that's that inflation plus new revenue. So we collect like, I think 7 million more per year. So it's nominal. I mean, we are collecting a little bit more, but that 7 million or 3 million last year, what it's capped at is, first of all, covers about total comp. So just our basic stuff.
Salary and benefits for our employees.
Yeah, so basic things that, and like barely covers all of our mandated services. So yes, we are getting a little bit more money, but it is not in any way commensurate or proportional to the increase of the demand.
But some of that demand is made up of stuff. You spent a bunch of government money on new programs and build whatever, and now we gotta pay for them going forward.
Not necessarily.
Not all of them.
I understand.
So we'll get to that.
Okay, so, if our core services, stay
Essential.
the same as they were like 5 years ago, and we're getting an inflation plus growth number every year, I don't see where we would be having a budget shortfall. I understand if we add new services, that we want to keep doing because
The world has changed.
But, I don't understand why, the allowed increases haven't allowed us to pay for inflation for employees, gas and everything else.
So part of that is, the county started falling behind in 2004. So we are in a huge deficit. We've got $316 million in deferred maintenance. I don't know if this is a nice area, but even in nice areas, there are potholes, and I've got a constituent of mine texted a picture of a big old crack in the road in a relatively new area already. So we have been falling behind for about 20 years.
You're collecting less money than the year before, or you're still?
Our revenue has not kept up with demands and needs. And the deterioration, and so, I don't know how much you know about road and bridge and facilities, and he did facilities, and we don't have a county manager. I'm the liaison, so we directly liaise with different departments. I liaise with our Public Works and Development Department, and, have been kind of a government nerd for a long time, so I kind of knew some, but looking at the charts, once you get into this exponential deterioration of your assets, of road and bridge assets, and that's what we've been facing. And so while they've been able to kind of do patches and Band-Aids, a lot of that stuff is not, it just literally isn't keeping up because the population continues to increasing deterioration on the roads, etc., right? So that is part of it. In terms of the new programs, yeah, it would be some of those new programs that would have to get cut. At the same time, that need is still very much there. So if we could cut, homeless, aid to preventing people to become homeless, from being homeless. We could cut funding to domestic violence services. We could cut funding to our aid to agencies that helps mental health programs. But those are things that are all incredible needs in the county, and that's why we're having a conversation, right? So yeah, cutting services, but
That's an
even
option.
those things,
That's
but even those things are a couple $1 million. It's nothing compared to the $12 million that might get cut from the sheriff's office, or the 5.7 that could get cut from PWE that still doesn't address the $316 million in deferred maintenance. So I hear you 100%, and that's part of what we're doing is we've got options. So I'll just go into the options. So we've got 3 options in Colorado. 4 technically. You could go into debt, but that's just going to cost us all more money in the long run, right?
Nobody wants us to be borrowing money.
Funding, and also what we need are not necessarily just capital costs. It's not necessarily just a new building that could be off project that we go. It's our overall sustainable recurring revenue. Our operating costs are falling behind. So we could just not do anything, and then we would just be cutting things, cutting services, right? And so not only building upon the problems that we already have, but then ending the forward movement that we've made on addressing the issues in our community. 2, we could do another sales tax, so that we would do a quarter of 1%, and I think you got your numbers turned around a little bit. The
Okay.
sales tax, because that's what open space does,
Oh, yeah.
would be about 45 million.
Okay.
So again, starting to Band-Aid, starting to get us moving forward. Or we could do debrucing. because we float our mills, we could just go up to the same, we would just raise our mills, we wouldn't have to be forced to cut or pay back. We would just go to the mills that we're already allowed to go to.
To our pre-Tabor limit, which was 15.7
7.1.
mils.
Yeah, something like that.
15.7. We're currently at about 11.2 mils because of those temporary tax credits every year.
And what that would look like, so sales tax is, you know, how much money are you spending? No diapers, no food, that kind of stuff, you know. But Tabor, if we did the debrucing, that would look like $13 a month per household if the household is about 500, if your home is worth about $500,000. So, and that would generate $74 million. So those are the options. We have been talking to people. I also, and look, he's a Republican, I'm a Democrat. I also am kind of a fan of Tabor because I'm a huge democracy nerd, and I think it has helped us have an informed and engaged electorate. I think it has done some harm because nobody loves raising taxes, but when there's a need, so it's kind of our conversation with our community has been, help us help you. What do you want to do? Here's the situation. You know, I feel very neutral about it. I inherited it, so I'm just here to go like, okay, well, let's fix it. What do you guys want to do? So that's been the conversation, and we've done a whole bunch of town halls. We've done surveys. We've surveyed almost 5,000 people within our community, and I will say there's no strong front runner. People don't love the idea of roads getting worse, of buildings falling apart, of slower turnaround times, but the cost of living is pinching people. So sales tax has done better at times and then not done better at times. Debrucing has done better at times and not done better at times. And so we are kind of still in that place of trying to figure out kind of what to do. And so that's why we're here. And so we want to hear from you. What makes sense to you? I think because of the way the county, I can kind of answer some questions that have come up before. Why doesn't the county just tighten its belt? Well, the county has been tightening its belt because it's literally only has one tax. And so as things have continued to get more expensive, the county has continued to tighten its belt. There's only so tight you can get. I mean, if y'all have ever seen Pirates of the Caribbean 1, and Keira Knightley's in that whalebone corset, and she can not really breathe, and she falls over, right? And that's then how we meet Jack Sparrow, which, you know, it's fun. But that's kind of where we are. There's really only so far, there's only so tight you can get until you just can't breathe and function anymore. And that's pretty much where we are. Before I came on, the history was apparently the commissioners in about 2019 or so started talking about, end of 2019, started talking about, wow, maybe we should do something. You know, maybe we really do, even though, you know, it was, you know, kind of a mixed board at the time and a lot of conversation, but they started really going, maybe we should put something on the ballot. Then COVID came along and gave that Band-Aid. Yeah. And so now here we are having the conversation again. So I can pause there. Those are those are kind of the options: is do nothing, sales tax, debruce. You know, and really, honestly, it's help us help you because it's your choice anyway. We can kind of choose what to refer to the ballot or not, but it's kind of, you know, we'd like to set ourselves up for success and do what you guys want us to do, so you feel really good about it. So, should we pause for questions? Yeah. Yes.
Now and then.
And then we'll go here and then there.
Now and then, people on the city council for Aurora talk about withdrawing Aurora from the county, becoming a city county.
Yeah.
Should they ever do it? It's not on the table at present, so it's not gonna help for next year. Should they do that, would Arapahoe County save from the services it gives? Because all of the people that are in the city of Aurora would be going to the city of Aurora for a lot of the services you do. Or are these services just not that great in terms of the roads and the sheriff and some of those other things?
So I have never seen us run numbers on that, information, it's more or less a wash. Because while, yes, City of Aurora has some of its own services, but the detention facility, human services, community resources, there's a lot that we do for the residents of Aurora. And Aurora has some really fancy places. I mean, it's got the whole spectrum, right? So while we would lose some of the demand on our services, we would also lose the tax base. So it's kind of a wash. And again, we've never run the numbers, and also that's 10 or 15 years in the future. I have talked with many Aurora, city council members about just even the timing of that. It doesn't address the problems we have now. It's far in the future, and my rough back of the napkin math is that it'd be a wash. So it doesn't really help.
Mayor Hogan, he was kind of in favor of that. Right now, Arapahoe County's population is about 657,000 people, and about half of that is City of Aurora. So you can kind of see what the impact would be. Aurora kind of runs north and south from the top border to the bottom border. So it would kind of, I've looked at it a little, not just, is that it would separate the eastern part of the county from the western part.
Yeah, that'd be
If they became their own city and county. And we've had our share of folks out east that have said they wanted to abdicate from Arapahoe County to and join either Weld County or Adams County, or, when people at least call me on the phone and they're upset because of their roads or because they can't get services. I've had people just say, if you're not careful, we're gonna. Now, we did have a small community in Watkins that did become a town, and they elected a mayor and a town board, and it just wasn't financially sustainable, and so they went back to being unincorporated around. But in 2019, we actually did put a budget, or put a ballot measure on the ballot for a new jail using property taxes, and it failed miserably. It went down in flames. So that was in 2019. So even back, as Jessica said, even back that far, before the pandemic, right before the pandemic, we were still trying to, that was our biggest expense. That was our biggest big ticket item that we had, that we knew we had to do something about. The risk of our jail not being improved would be a federal lawsuit that would take control away from Arapahoe County and take over federal control and make us do those improvements, because we were, although our sheriff's office is, like to say, Triple Crown accredited by 3 different organizations that look at the type of work the sheriff's office does, and they're accredited, and our detention facility is very humane. I believe it's humane, and it is meeting all the requirements right now. And so we are in the process of building a new laundry and kitchen facility that will allow us to expand the medical portion of the jail and increase our mental health services in the jail.
And it's not really new, it's more renovated, but yeah, a little expansion. And that's actually one of the examples of, we were able to pull enough of those ARPA dollars aside to be able to do that, so leveraging that money as prudently as we possibly can.
The other ARPA funds that we spent, we did one-time projects with Aurora, and we did, we're gonna be doing a one-time supportive housing center for justice-involved folks. Our problem was when we're required to release people from our detention facility, there's no exceptions to that. If somebody's time is up, they have to be released. No questions asked. What we were doing was, we were taking former inmates who had medical and mental health conditions, and we were releasing them at the worst possible time. I remember that we released an inmate in a wheelchair in a blinding snowstorm one day. That gentleman ended up having to call the fire department because he couldn't maneuver his wheelchair anywhere. That's what he was used to doing. So he at least got into the emergency room at Swedish Hospital for 3 days until he could get out on his own. That's the type of thing that we're talking about, is doing a supportive housing unit in Aurora, because again, they are our biggest customers, you could say, where these folks coming out of our detention facility will be able to find a transitional housing just to hold them steady, maybe get employment training, which they get in the jail as well. Maybe they'll get medically assisted treatment for their addictions, which they can get in the jail, but it will continue those services in a less, I won't say less secure, because it's a pretty secure location, but it would allow them some kind of transition back into the community.
Ma'am, you had a question back.
Yeah, I'm just curious as to how this is gonna affect those of us who live in unincorporated Arapahoe County. Are we gonna have to pick up the slack or what?
Well, everybody in the county pays the same sales tax for us. And everyone would, who's a property owner. That's really the difference between the debruce. The debrucing is what will affect property taxes. So we have renters in Arapahoe County as well, but that will be passed through probably into their rent.
If anything, it will help unincorporated Arapahoe because other cities have their own road and bridge departments. We only have ours, and we do a bunch of shared projects, but it's in the unincorporated areas that are really falling, that's where road and bridge is responsible for and falling behind, so it would help you. Yeah, but it's not like the property tax is only paid by unincorporated Arapahoe. Yeah.
And I think we should probably introduce Joan.
Our clerk is here.
Oh,
Our clerk and recorder is
Yes.
here.
Jeff
Taking
Baker
a break
is
from
my commissioner,
administering
so-
our hot primaries.
Yeah.
Thanks. Did you want to take a second and say hi?
No, I'm good, thank you,
Okay.
I just came to see you guys, thank you
Okay.
so much.
Well, hello.
So does anybody want to advocate for one or the other? Doing nothing. Sales tax. Debrucing.
So why is it just those three options? Why can't we have that other option that does say tightening your belt and showing us where you're tightening your belt? Because I'm still of the belief that you guys are still wasting taxpayers' money on projects that we don't actually need. But we can't see your budget. All we get is like fictional big numbers here and there. We can't see where you actually spend any of your money.
No.
So I look at it and I say, produce a budget and then tell me what you want from us and how you're gonna spend it, and then maybe we can have this conversation of what we do between these three. But to just come back to us again and again, every single cycle comes through, it's we need more tax money, we need more tax money. You don't have a budget problem, you have a spending problem. And when you fix your spending problem, then we can have these conversations about budgets.
So, a couple things. We have a 400-page budget. You can absolutely see it. It's online. We also have, if you go to AC.
Okay, where is it? Because I can't find anything on your website then.
I mean,
Because
you
I have
literally
looked
go
for
to
the
the
budget
search
on the
bar
website.
and just put budget. You will be able,
Okay,
it
I have
will,
looked.
it will come up. I can help you find it on your phone, so then you have the link, or Jordan, if you give us your email, we'll send you the entire PDF. So you can
Which is
just have
gonna
it.
be really great, because then, yes, I get, a whole bunch of other numbers.
Yeah.
But you also need me to now start to go through and to start to edit what,
But that's what
and
you
audit
said
what
you
you're
wanted
doing,
to
which is
do.
absolutely fine. We can do that as a group here,
Mhm.
but you keep coming back and saying, well, if we don't get this money, that's diapers and food. Well, that's diapers and food here too.
So
Because we
that's-
still have,
that's
we
the
still have
other
to pay,
point. So
we
that's-
still have to pay for our gas, you already said it's going up, all right? I still have to pay for food that is going up, and now you want more tax money from me as well. So now we're right back to, we're stuck in a country now, as it is, with really bad inflation. You guys are asking again to go up, to increase taxes
So,
again.
sir, just one note to correct the record there. Part of why we are in the problem we have is because we haven't been coming to you over and over and over again. The thing that he was describing at the beginning was a sales tax only for open spaces that was originally passed 23,
2003.
years ago. That would sunset, and so the county would just put it back on the ballot of, hey, do you guys want us to keep doing this, okay? The question in 2019 was only for a jail. This is literally the first time we have ever, as a county, contemplated asking our residents for either a sales tax generally or a debrucing. The absolute only time. And so I feel you
I
because
don't think so. I believe
school
we've all heard
districts,
that we've been requesting
school
to go up.
districts, cities,
but-
metro districts, fire districts, a bunch of districts do, the state. I mean, I'm not saying that you guys don't get a ton of tax questions every single year. And it's very confusing, 100%. But when it comes to the county, we just simply have not. And so I'm not saying your feelings are not correct, like absolutely, things are expensive. And we have even talked about it. We're like, this is a terrible time. Everybody and that's part of, we see that reflected in the surveys. That's why sales tax was performed better last year, it's gone down this year. The property taxes started better in 23 than everybody got their property valuations, and it was like, oh gosh. And so yeah, we feel it, but part of this conversation and part of what we're saying is the need continues to grow. There is no more that we can really cut, like tighten our belts without cutting essential services. It just
But
simply
you'll
is,
expect all of us to cut our home budgets in order to pay more taxes. Is that right?
the taxes that you would pay, which we 100% understand. Any amount is a lot, especially for folks on fixed income. I mean, we've got single mothers. I 100% understand. I was literally on Medicaid before I became a commissioner. So trust me when I say, like, I get it. However, those taxes aggregate to then also provide services, senior services, veteran services, better roads. $13 a month on a $500,000 home is still cheaper than fixing the axle and tire on your car when you run into a pothole. And so 100%, yes, it will cost some money, but it also, you get benefit from it. And that's the choice. And that's why it's, and there's some people, look, I grew up Republican, I'm a Democrat now, I've thought about unaffiliating. I kind of ran for government because I don't trust government. So like, I'm with you and I got on the EBC. You can tell Jeff, we talk amongst ourselves. Our EBC is our executive budget committee. It's like the county version of the state joint budget committee. I got on there in part because I was like, I'm gonna be the most annoying person if I'm not on the committee. Because I'm very skeptical of how, and I was like, I'm new, I wasn't here, I don't know what you guys have been doing, because I also, while I tried to read through 400 pages, you don't know how the decisions work. Now, having sat in the room and been there, one of the things I can tell you is we do baseline budgeting that does not account, when we tell our offices and our departments for baseline budgeting, we do not give them inflation. They've had the same budget since 2009, I think I heard. That's nuts. I've also in EBC have talked about, okay, if we maybe we need to go to zero line item budgeting. Let's get really intense about this.
Build your budget.
The problem is that those line item budgeting kind of fixes could maybe save us $1 or $2 million. They're never going to get us close to the $316 million in deferred maintenance. So, or keep up with the continuing demand and needs. So I totally hear you. And so there's two things. So we will get you the budget. Since you asked for it and we can show you, perfect. And then also acbudget.com is a website that we've put up because we know when we're talking about the budget, people are like, well, I don't want to read 400 pages. And so it gives you a tool that will make it a little bit easier to get through. You can play with the different options and see what that would look like for your household.
We've made no decisions so far.
Yeah.
We're still discussing it. we're still getting reports about the surveys that people filled out and turned in about what their preference would be. We'll probably be making the 5 county commissioners, and again, when you have 5 county commissioners, you probably have 5 different opinions. It's just like your family, right? What should we do? We get together and we talk about it. We are, at least asking our citizens, our residents, to tell us what they think. That's important. No matter what we choose to do, last year we chose not to do anything. We chose not to put a ballot measure that we had kind of massaged, we looked at, we had the lawyers look at it. We chose not to do it last year. That could be the result this year.
And part of it, to be honest, that decision was informed by community's response to our surveys. People are like, no, don't do it. It's very different this year. It's kind of more 50-50. So it's not like this is like we really are gonna, what do you guys wanna do? Anybody else? Anybody else got thoughts, questions? Yes.
I guess my question is, with Arapahoe County, like any business, what have you guys done to cut costs?
I can answer a few of those questions. One of the things that we've done, it's in our clerk and recorder's offices. You may remember the days where you always go to the clerk and recorder's office, the motor vehicle office, to get your new license plates when you buy a car, right? Or to get your tabs. Now everything's done by mail. A lot of efficiencies have been made in the clerk and recorder's office, allowing people to renew their license plates by mail so you don't have to come in every day. But another thing that you probably used to do is get your driver's license renewed through the clerk and recorder's office. We don't do that anymore. That's a state function. We did it as a convenience to our citizens, as a convenience to our residents, that we would allow them to come in and apply, take the test, look through the little goggle thingy, and make sure you're not colorblind, that you can still drive, and things like that. We don't do that anymore at all. The people that were doing that have now been totally reassigned to doing license plates. So that's one of the services that we've had to cut.
And
But
I just
we've
want to
also
say,
found-
unfortunately, that's a service that we really did want to provide to our residents, but it was definitely draining us. It was not making us any money, using our resources. And when it's not mandated by the state, we had to make a choice. Even running the immigration line was about, when I first started, I'm sure it's a lot more now, but when I first started doing driver's license, it was 10 cents per customer just to even run the immigration line. And we weren't getting any money from any of the driver's license.
So,
we
ma'am,
had to make
I
a
don't-
choice.
So, ma'am, we have a division within our finance department that is just on strategy. That's strategy and performance. That is solely in a program within the county called Align Arapahoe. That is solely about making sure we're hitting our goals in terms of responsiveness and being good government, right? But also a whole pillar just on efficiency. So another examples are facilities and fleet department went through and made an inventory of everything that we have in our workshop. So now instead of, if something is broken, instead of having to manually go find something, that's time is money, now we've got it all computerized and boom, 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 boom. If you're like me, you're like, I can't believe we didn't do that a long time ago, but also, government does move slow sometimes, and when you don't have the dollars to just invest in that, to go like, oh, we'll just hire a contractor to come in and do that, it does take time. But those are the things that we're like, okay, we are now at the point where we need to be prioritizing projects like that more and more and more, every department. And so every quarter we have meetings where we hear about what different offices and departments are doing to make things more efficient and to cut costs, basically. And but that's also the thing, is that we are trying to cut costs back to meet 2004 demands. Like, there's a part where it just doesn't, there's only so much you can do. Does that make sense? So,
That makes sense.
so we've
But
done
I
that
think
across every
for
department in
me as a
office.
voter, to be behind any of what you're talking
Yeah.
about, I'd like you to, just like this other gentleman was talking about your budget, put in writing what you've done over the last 4 years to help cut
Absolutely.
your expenses.
That's a good idea.
Because there isn't one company out there that hasn't had to cut people and
Absolutely.
expenses over the last 4 years.
Absolutely.
And so if we as residents understand that better, then we can support you better.
100%.
I
Another thing that we've done, this may be kind of inverse, right? But is we've also been going after money. I was surprised to learn that the county didn't have a single grant writing FTE on staff. We've changed that.
Yep.
So we're now we're like, no, federal government's giving away money. Those are our taxpayers' money. Let's go get that money, right? Getting more assertive with that, more assertive with our congressional offices. So all that congressional directed spending, hungry hippoing that, you know? And so yeah, so there's things, not only because, like I've said, like there's only so much we can, like we're in the whalebone corset, right? And I think absolutely from a communications perspective, we can do a way better job of showing you how we have. A lot of it comes in, and Commissioner Baker kind of touched on this, was we do our budget and our total comp. We were talking about salaries and benefits, okay? And we compete in the market, and this is a kind of mandated thing. I don't really know that. I haven't specialized in HR yet, but we compete in a market with about 10 to 20 different jurisdictions that are our competitive market. So we're competing with Dubco, which is DeBruce, by the way, Parker, Longmont, Boulder, I mean like all up and down the Front Range, and that drives where our salary range is. So you were talking about local businesses. We know that this has been an employee's market, right? Everybody's had to raise their salary. I mean, like I was driving by McDonald's the other day going, oh, if I don't get reelected, like that actually pays pretty well right now at this point, you know? And like it's, so we get pulled into that. We have lost employees because they can go to Aurora for 20,000 more. So we are losing, which costs money as a business, you know, retention is cheaper. So that's costing us. So we have to stay competitive a little bit, but there's only so far that we can go. And so we literally can't go any higher than we're going to be more competitive, and so we are losing staff and losing employees. And
Including
so
sheriff's deputies, big time.
yeah, because we do have such a great department or office.
They're
and
well
are
trained,
triple
they're
ground. And so
fully
they get poached.
accredited.
Littleton is stealing our folks, like all sorts, and we just can't keep up. And so while we are trying to find as many efficiencies as possible, we also are just getting outpowered and not able to keep up, which then becomes less efficient in the long run. Just like the roads and the exponentializing deterioration there. Does that make sense? But yes, communications, we can go through and see what all have we done to save people money.
That's a great idea.
And I also wanted you to know we're also going after money too. Yeah.
Okay, so if DeBrucey has been so good for all these other agencies, why are you clinging to Tabor?
I'm not.
I can probably maybe take that one a little bit. Tabor
Yeah, I just got
has
here.
become, she mentioned our parties. Tabor is very well respected, I think nationwide, by conservatives.
Actually, my dad was the budget director of Kansas and a Republican, and no. Kansas thinks we're crazy for Tabor, so
Yeah.
I don't know that I go that far.
Okay.
But
But
yeah.
it's,
I mean, I
there's-
don't know if you know about conservatives in Kansas.
yeah, maybe not.
Okay, they're there.
But it's held very dear. You know, a lot of people just think about Tabor as government has to ask for permission before it raises taxes. Debrucing was something that Douglas County did way back when Tabor was first initiated. Arapahoe County did. Many more jurisdictions debruced as time passed by, and they reached the same point that I think we're at right now, where it's become more of a discussion. Why haven't we done it before now? Because we've always tried different methods to raise income, to cut costs, and without having to do that. It's kind of a last resort, so to speak. But that's my opinion about it.
I'm thinking 20, 30 years ago, counties probably spent a great majority of their money on sheriff's department and
Roads, two things.
two things, did very well. Now we've added social services, homeless, all these other things. But we're not getting funding for that from any other source than our historical athletic thing. So my question is, do we still want to have two, or do we want to have three? If we want to have three, we should pay for it. But if we don't want number three, or we want the state to pay for it, the federal government to pay for homeless situations, then we should not vote to increase taxes and expect you to spend our money for the historical sheriffs and roads.
Human services, as I said, about 80% of their salaries and programs are paid for by the state. I was part of Arapahoe County when we had a very small social services department that was only in charge of doing what the state told us to do, the state legislature. We're a political subdivision of the state. We have what's called the state legislature that passes laws, passes bills. Okay, not explaining. And we're required to implement those laws. When the state divested themselves of the role of human services to a certain extent, there's still a state Department of Human Services, but it's more of an oversight entity, much like the Department of Education oversees schools. So at the state level, the Department of Human Services develops policies and procedures that we're required to follow. Sometimes they develop policies and procedures that add to our expenses that aren't covered. So that's another way. We call them unfunded mandates. If we want to be silly, we call them unmandated fundings. But that's really what happens with human services, because the state gave us that role with some funding,
Without the money though, so.
Without complete funding,
Counties
yes.
in general, or maybe Arapahoe in particular, say, hey, you give us all these new duties, give us the money to satisfy.
my voice
Yeah.
would be hoarse. We tell
Yeah.
them that
Yes.
every single year.
Yes, like all of the time. And some of my friends are those people. And I have very strong conversations with them. Yeah. Another example, the splitting, so things that have come on our plate that weren't on our plate a couple years ago. Tri-County Health broke up. That was, we had an economy of scale, we had efficiency there. We now have our own public health department. The benefit is that we can tailor it a little more to be for our residents and meet our residents' needs, but we don't have we've lost some of those efficiencies. JD 18, that was a question on the ballot. That was not our idea, but now JD 18 is being split into JD 23 and JD
18th
18.
Judicial District is splitting into the 23rd
So it
Judicial
used to
District.
be, it was the biggest, and it was Arapahoe, Lincoln, Elbert, and Dougco. So then there was a question on the ballot, we need to split it up. Now Arapahoe will be JD 18, and the other three will still get to hang out together. That is another expense that we have, that we didn't ask for, and is unfunded, basically.
Federal rules,
Yeah.
state rules that increase our costs,
Yeah.
that don't provide funding for those things. Even at the jail, at the sheriff's office jail, they've made space requirements. Each inmate is required to have a certain amount of space, the lighting has to be exactly the right way. The air exchange, I was in facilities, so this is why I know this. If it's in the medical unit, you've gotta have a 100% air exchange so that you're not, infecting other, residents of the jail with these illnesses and things like that. In the general pod, there are all these requirements that we're required to do that add money. We had to spend millions of dollars to prevent, and I'm not saying this is wrong, I'm just telling you that it's a good
They're
thing.
good things.
It's a good thing. It was suicide prevention. So that there was no place that any inmate could tie a towel around a railing and hang themselves. Any possible location like that had to be modified in order to prevent that suicide. That's a good thing, but it was a very expensive proposition.
So public health, let's say we don't do anything, public health, we have just started, we started with a small little budget as like kind of what we could afford. We wanna talk about businesses, what do businesses need? Businesses need inspections, who does that? The public health department. So, we're kinda like, we cannot pay for these things, right? But then it's slower, and then people are like, well, I'm trying to get my business open, I'm a small business owner, which we're all huge fans of, because to me, I think that is one of the most American things you can do. Self-determination, own your own labor, that's huge. Like, okay, so we wanna help these, or big businesses that are gonna come in and employ hundreds of people, right? So that you can live and work in the same place. So, I totally feel you, it just is what it is.
And we haven't even talked about the price of housing.
Oh, yeah, so there's that. And you wanna talk about not addressing homelessness? Well, you wanna talk about one of the things we get the most calls about? We have people who cannot get out of homelessness and are struggling so bad that they literally use the jail. They literally do petty
jail
theft,
and
petty crimes,
emergency
so that they have somewhere to stay. That's not really the world I wanna live in, right? People become desperate, they make bad decisions. You're calling it social services, sure. I'm calling it efficient government, because it is cheaper to keep somebody housed, to keep those kids safe. You wanna talk about the role of government at the core is about keeping people safe. You know the #1 population of people who are homeless are moms with their kids? I don't feel good about that. So I can see what you're saying is like there was this fundamental thing, but also the definition of that, back in the 80s and 90s, we didn't have the same level of homelessness. So this is personally part of why I love Tabor, is because it's like you get to choose. We will choose to put something on the ballot or not, but at the end of the day, it's your choice. And we do have Courtney here with some things, but I saw your hand, sir. Go for it.
Just going back to, the 3 options you guys said that we have, they seem to be just short term. They seem to be like short-term immediate options. What are we looking at long term? I mean, you kind of touched on it in maybe, with small business. What about, incentives for industries to come to increase other, have tax base for other places?
So that's actually that economic tax incentives like that to bring businesses here, take money out of the county coffers without necessarily bringing the commensurate amount of taxation back in.
Well, how else are we supposed to? There's only so much you can.
There are
ask for
federal and
president.
state programs.
So
More
hold
than
on. I just wanted to set that aside because that's actually one of the things that's not a mandate. Us doing economic incentives is not mandated. And so that would be on the chopping block, which to me would be a shame because it takes money to get money, right? That's how we grow our local economy, right? But those options that we were talking about, do nothing, right? We could just not put something on the ballot, or we put something on the ballot, y'all vote no, okay? Sales tax and debrucing would both be in perpetuity. So those would be, they may not catch us up all the way, because we've got the $316 million in deferred maintenance, plus the ongoing needs. But either 74 million or 45, it at least helps us so we're not leaking from the boat. And we can start making plans. We could do COPs off of either the
Certificates
sales,
of participation.
either the sales tax or some of the debrucing. That's part of why we aren't creating a sunset for it is because A, the need is our general fund, it really is our operating costs, and B,
I'm an advocate for the sunset, but
I'm an advocate for sunsets on projects, right? And if it's something like open space. I hope you enjoy our parks, it might be where most of us are living, anyway. But that is a long term, I'm on like 3 or 4 laps, I don't think you've gotten one
I
yet.
haven't gotten one left.
But that's the ongoing, that is, and so looking at how, if we can do that and then leverage those dollars, the grant writing is part of it, and getting that in, so we're regularly finding that kind of those, streams of income. But we already do economic incentives, and that's one of the things that we'd have to cut if we didn't, if we don't
I
get
just wanna
something
add
else.
one other thing, because we've
Yeah.
got some folks here from
I
the
know.
eastern part of the county. We just included Bennett and Deer Trail in an economic zone. They just got
Yeah.
it passed
Good,
today.
good,
That,
yeah,
that will, we have a tier right along I-70, on both sides of I-70, that will allow for more economic development. That was no cost to us. It's a program that run by the state. Now, we may have to dedicate some time of our staff to run the program, but there's gonna be more being put out about that later.
yeah. There were some other hands, and then we have Courtney, our
Yeah,
staff,
we
here to
want
talk about
Courtney to
senior
come.
and veteran
Any
services,
veterans?
and so, but
Yeah.
if this is what you guys wanna talk about, also it's like, this is government in action, so, yes.
So, a couple things on the AC budget site,
.com.
.com site. What are the possibilities to add in the senior,
Homestead
housing tax
exemption?
credit? Yeah,
So,
because, it mentions it below,
We
I
can.
know how to calculate it. But do other people know how to calculate that if they didn't get a math degree? So I'm just wondering if that might also help for people to be like, wait a minute,
yeah,
if we could just do a back-end calculation on that website, we can support all the older adults who have owned their home for 10 years and show them the actual impact to debreezing.
that's awesome.
So
Yeah.
so that's the number one. And then
Cool.
the number two, if we're doing a bunch of economic growth opportunities in Arapahoe County, does that actually help Arapahoe County in the long run if you still have Tabor limiting how much of that economic growth you can have towards these things?
Exactly.
So like
And that's-
sustainability wise, is the solution tightening the belt to get the budget balanced this year? Or is the solution looking into the future going, what is keeping us from balancing every year?
Yeah.
No, that's part of it also. No, and Baker can tell you, that was one of the things, I was like, well, we're not doing this anymore because of that, right? At the same time, to this gentleman's point, it can sometimes take opportunities out, so
It's both.
it's both, yeah, but yes, no, it's absolutely on the chopping block, 100%.
So, a couple questions probably wrapped up in one, but if you debruise, you said it's a certain amount for the first year, what is year 2, 3? I mean, what does Douglas County look like since they debruise how much of their taxes?
We can
they
look at
increased
what,
as opposed to Arapahoe County, who's been under.
we can look at what other people did, but they did it at a different time.
Yeah, but
So
that's-
it's
that's
not
a-
gonna be apples and apples and oranges and oranges,
But that's a
but
better test, though.
we can use it
Has theirs increased
to maybe
more than
allocate
Arapahoe County's?
what we need to address that $316 million deferred maintenance budget. Yes, that's what we know of. But we also wanna be thinking long-term as well. We also want to not have to go, we don't want, probably be after we're no longer on the board, but we don't want future boards to have to go through this as well. This consideration, and again, no decisions have been made. We'll have our say in August sometime is when the decision by the board will be made.
So, and sir, to your question, what I imagine is as new growth comes in and then they get folded into the property tax, we will actually be able to realize the benefit of the new property taxes, whereas right now we really aren't. Because the valuation has gone up so high that we're basically getting penalized for that, because while it's inflation and new growth, the valuations have gone up, and so we have to flow our mills down, so we're basically only getting one or the other, instead of getting the benefit of both new growth and the higher values. And so it won't be, individually, yeah, you'll still get impacted by higher valuations. I mean, I don't know how much you like see memes and stuff on the internet, but people are like, I don't know what you've heard, but Colorado's awful, don't come here, you know, like, everyone's like, ugh. But what we will see in the future is, yes, hopefully a more steady and stable increase from the valuations and the assessments, that will stay the normal, but then the county will be able to receive more from new growth also. Because right now they're competing against each other and forcing us to lower our mills, and we can't collect the benefit from that. So that's part of why our growth isn't paying for itself.
I think that kind of fits in.
Cool.
But with that being
I should have a whiteboard. I was a teacher. I need like trying
Could
to
draw it all
yeah,
out.
absolutely.
The other question that I had is, doesn't paper control more taxes than county taxes?
Yes. Yeah.
So if we de-Bruce, do our other taxes go up?
Doesn't affect them.
No, because each taxing entity has to de-Bruce itself. That's why
The
you've got
schools.
metro districts, schools, cities that
Right.
have de-Bruced, and that's why your taxes, you're going like, my taxes are going up, yes, because they have, right? But they're also doing better too, and so it sucks because yes, to this gentleman's point, yeah, everyone's in a pinch, including the county. We are asking you all to potentially pony in more, but it's investing in your community. There are things that the county does that nobody else does. And so that investment, and part of why part of this conversation and the importance around it is so many people, beyond just political philosophy around the size of government and the role of government, a lot of people haven't realized that Arapahoe County has been in such a problem. Because the county has done a really good job of making it look like we're doing really well.
We
And
smile and tell you all the
communicating
good things we're doing.
Yeah, or doing Band-Aids, but now things that have caught up, so, that's kind of part of it. Any other questions?
Hopefully simple. What is the process of de-Brucing? Is it just the commissioners make that decision, or the commissioners decide that it goes to the vote?
That's it.
That's what I-
Yep, so that will be the decision in front of us in August, is
Whether to go to the
do
ballot.
we go to the ballot? And if so, what do we take to the ballot and put in front of you all for November, October,
Some
November,
people have said, should we put both? I mean, we've had citizens say, put both
I
on
do.
there.
I will say, I came in last year going, let's do both. We need both, honestly. And I was like, then maybe we'll get one. Whatever, people can kind of choose. We'll see how it goes. And it's kind of overwhelming. It's a lot. Like, in this situation, we're able to kind of articulate the three things. It really is about roads, bridge facilities, that kind of infrastructure stuff, public safety, mental health co-responders, a lot of the good stuff around that. And then social services, yeah, public health department, community resources, human services, things that we are mandated to do, but don't have adequate funding for, and don't have adequate funding to meet the needs of our community.
Arapahoe County has changed over the years.
Yeah.
It really has.
So that's it. So that's what we'll do. We have to make that decision in August, and then you guys get to choose your own adventure in the fall. If we put something on. Yeah.
For people who are giving their feedback about what they wanna do, are you guys doing this also, cause I know there was a survey.
Uh-huh.
I don't see that it's still out.
It's not out anymore. It's being closed.
There
But-
was a text survey, but there's still, I think, an opportunity on
And-
the budget website, acbudget.com, that people can still go in and give feedback.
And leave comments, yeah.
Yeah,
So that's kind of now what we're doing. is
Yeah.
The community input
Yep.
directly and online.
yeah,
Okay.
yes, totally.
Courtney,
Anything? No more about budget?
any veterans here? No veterans? Usually at Heritage you look at that.
De-Bruce.
De-Bruce
Alright,
is
we
what
got
you're
one for
saying.
that, alright. Thank you for your input.
Let us introduce to you Courtney Stryker. She's with our Community Resources Division, and she manages our services to older residents and also our veterans programs. So,
Thank you. I wish I had like one of those like. Do we need to like shake our sillies out? I know this has been a really good discussion. I've sat in on a lot of these, and a lot of people don't have feedback, so it's nice to see a lively discussion. But thank you, commissioners. As they mentioned, I'm with Senior Resources and Veteran Services. So tonight, it sounds like mainly I'll focus on senior resources, and I can give you the quick version because I know we're a little over on time. But I want everybody to just kind of, in their mind as I'm sharing some facts, I want you to think about an older adult in your life. It could be yourself, it could be your mom, it could be your neighbor, it could be your dad. So I want you to think about who that is while I'm talking. So as you all know, by 2030, the number of individuals over the age of 60 in the state of Colorado will be the largest population. So Arapahoe County, being one of the largest counties, is going to have a very large population of older adults over the age of 60. So their needs are going to only be increasing. If they haven't already retired, they are going to start, and their needs are going to be increasing. And what that looks like is going to determine, a lot of what services we're able to offer. So, some of the different programs that we offer through Arapahoe County are our Homemaker and our Chore Services program. Alright, so I told you to think about your loved one, your Mima. What is their name? Give me one of their names.
Catherine.
Catherine, okay. And how old is Catherine?
74.
74, okay. So we have sweet Catherine, she's 74, she lives at home alone. And let's say Catherine is very able-bodied, she doesn't have any known disabilities, she's just older and things get hard. And so what's something that Catherine hates or has a really hard time doing? Catherine can't bend down and scrub her bathtub. Can you imagine sweet Catherine, your sweet Mima, just not having an easy go at cleaning her bathtub? And that is one of the things that's preventing her from staying independent and living in her home. So we at Arapahoe County have a program for a homemaker where we have staff that will go to Catherine's house to perform routine house cleaning every other week for an hour and a half. Now, the only way Catherine qualifies for this program is because she is low income. She's 200% or below the federal poverty level, so she's living on Social Security and she's on a fixed income. And we have over 275 clients that are on this program who you don't have to be a certain age, although we do have the majority are older adults, but you just can't be able to physically perform the tasks, and you have to meet the income requirements. So say Catherine was 28, has cystic fibrosis, has 4 kids, and she's living on Social Security and just meets that income requirement, and she physically can't get down and scrub the bathtub. She can't do laundry, she can't clean her kitchen, wipe down the fridge, those types of things. That's what our program does, and it's completely free. Another plus of our homemaker program for sweet Catherine, because she does live alone, is they have the same staff member come every other week to their house. So Catherine gets to build a relationship, and we get to address that social isolation that she's experiencing by living at home alone. Now, the difference between Catherine being in our homemaker program would be things escalate, and she says, I just can't do this anymore. I need to sell my house and I need to go into a nursing home. The average cost of care in the Denver metro area for a private room in a nursing home is around $10,000 a month. Now, our staff, our sweet staff, does not cost $10,000 a month for one person to see about 20 different clients. So it's a huge cost savings because, as taxpayers, if we don't support our homemaker program for these simple tasks to keep Catherine in our home, she's gonna have to go on Medicaid because she's, again, low income, and our tax dollars will be going to the feds to pay for that Medicaid paid facility. So it's really, there's a lot of nuances that are benefits to having this program be available. Questions on Catherine's program? Yes.
So is this program state mandated and funded?
This
Or is it one or
program,
the other?
this program is not state mandated, but it is state funded. We are funded through the Community Service Block Grant, which is from the state. We're required to do a community needs assessment every 3 years, where we survey the community. This last year, at the end of 2023, we had to complete a survey, and so we're just starting a new 3-year grant cycle, and that community needs assessment justifies what we're able to spend these funds on. And so the top priorities are determined based on other funding, because obviously housing was going to be one of the biggest priorities that people wanted, but because of all of the extra ERA and COVID funds, we were able to continue funding senior resources, which has been in existence for 20 plus years in Arapahoe County.
So this program, since it's state funded, would not be on the chopping block for,
So it actually, we are at, we do use some county general funds. So there's a small amount, because we are grant funded. Some people don't always fit in the box of a grant. And right now, the CSBG Community Service Block Grant has that 200% federal poverty level or below for income, but that was started in COVID. Before, it was 125%, so it was even lower income. And the general funds actually were able to supplement so that we could serve just that many more people. And so if we do have to face budget cuts, part of our general fund would go away. And so we hope that doesn't happen, but we wouldn't be able to serve as many clients as we do. Other questions on homemaker? Income restricted, doesn't matter age, just can't physically be able to do the task. Yes?
Is there a time limit, like how long they can utilize this program?
No.
Or a
It's-
wait list?
We do have a wait list, because we don't have, unlimited funds. But we do get turnover because, as we age, we have more needs. And so as people need, if they need help bathing, we don't touch the clients. So if they need help bathing, eating, they can't, they need help with incontinence, we're gonna refer them to those long-term care facilities. But we were able to extend them staying in their home, which I'm sure all of you know, or yourselves, that's what you would want to do instead of going into a facility. So it's a short wait list.
Just gonna ask you
The number, we currently, I think we have like 6 to 12 people on our wait list, and we have 10 staff members. We're bringing on another one that's been vacant just because we want to make sure they have a full caseload when they start so that we're efficiently using funds. Other questions on homemaker? No? Okay. One more and I promise we can get out of here. All right, so our chore services program. This is funded by Dr. Cog, the Denver Regional Council of Government, which is funded by the federal Older Americans Act that was enacted in, I want to say, 1975. And so they're pass-through dollars, so they go to the state and then they go to their AAA Area Agency on Aging. We apply for some funds, we're awarded funds, but we are required a match. And what that means in grant world is they say, we'll give you $100,000, but you have to match that with county general funds at 25% or at 50%, so that we know you have skin in the game. And so again, if we face budget cuts, chore services would have to get cut as well. Well, let's talk about what chore services is, because we just got a grant for the next year. So fingers crossed we can keep the services going. So because this is funded by the Older Americans Act, there are no income restrictions, and it's for anybody age 60 and over. So let's think about Catherine. She lives in her own home, and she doesn't really need to mow her lawn a lot, but she's got a really big yard. And in the fall, she gets a lot of leaves. And we know she can't reach down and clean her bathtub, so she might actually need help raking up those leaves. So our chore services program, it helps with more heavy duty tasks. So things like yard cleanup, spring cleaning inside the house, window washing, first floor only, outside, inside any floor, or we'll like clean her oven. We're there for 3.5 hours, and it's meant to be more of like a 1 to 2 times a year kind of tasks. So it's again still that it's not routine, and it's just here and there. A lot of times we're working with hoarding families who they had an inspection coming, or they're going to get evicted if they don't clear paths for fire escape or different things like that, and they're willing to have us come in and help as long as there's no pests like ants or mice or lice or anything of that nature, and nothing is going to fall on our staff. We will go out and help. So I know I went out probably like a month and a half ago, all the way out to Byers, and we had a team, there were like 6 of us, to help clean the fence line on a 5-acre property, because the individual living there, she had to care for her husband who had dementia. She was over 60, her in income doesn't matter. And so we were able to go out and clear that because I know a lot of people don't like going out to the Eastern Plains. Well, guess what? We will. We're really trying to amp up more services out there and make people know that we're available to help them. So that's chore services. Again, 60 and over, and there's no income requirements. That's it. We do an assessment over the phone, but there's no right or wrong answer. You just can't really be able to do the tasks. If you live with your grandkids or your own kids live with you, we would say, well, why can't they do that for you? And if the answer is, oh, they're lazy, they don't want to. Well, this program's really not for you. It's for someone who says, they're disabled or they can't physically do it. But, sometimes you might get sick or have surgery and need furniture moved, and there's no one to lift the 50-pound couch or whatever. We can come help do that with our chore program. Okay, questions on chore? Everybody feel like they understand the difference between homemaker and chore? Okay, perfect. We are called senior resources, so I just lastly want to share that we do get a lot of phone calls into our phone line just about different resources that are available for older adults. So if you ever have a question, you need to rent medical equipment or you need transportation or anything of that nature, please feel free to use our phone number. It's on all the brochures. I will leave some in the back. And that is it for senior resources, unless you guys have other questions or you want me to go over veteran services. The only thing I'll say about that is a government mandated program that we get about $14,000 from the state to run. So.
And that doesn't cover it.
Yeah.
14,000 doesn't cover it?
No, and we have the second highest population of veterans in the state of Colorado, and we get $14,000 to run claims for them. So you can imagine we already have a 6-week waiting list, and we have 6 staff. 2 of those are temporary grant funded with COVID money. So that's another day, another conversation. But any other questions? Any scenarios, hypotheticals you want to ask about? We are mandated reporters, so if we do get calls or concerns, we will make a report to Adult Protective Services at Human Services.
Or the sheriff's.
Or we'll call 911 too. So.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Courtney.
thank you.
I think that was a great example of the way, and for every program she talked about, there's probably hundreds more that throughout the county that we try to do with as little cost to our taxpayers as possible. So that's our goal, is to try to reduce as much of the burden. But we've just gotten to the point now where we're needing to have these very intense conversations with you and among ourselves. And so we ask for your understanding and check out the website to learn more, and we'd be happy to talk or email or have a phone conversation with you as well. Thank you for coming tonight.